In today's stupid video that didn't need to be made, I wanted to compare what is the cheapest guitar that I've bought, maybe ever, new, which is the Squier debut, which I bought from Amazon. There's two other videos on the channel if you're interested in that at all. What some of you guys apparently in the comments have been saying is the best tone that you've heard on the channel, the Collings JL470. And let's look at these things together and compare them.
This channel is supported by Squier. Squier is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses.
Right, so the first thing I would say is, like, looking at these things, what really sticks out is that if you want to make your guitar look cheap, stick hang tags on it and a sticker. If you want to make it look expensive, don't do that. So quite why, I mean, I guess they must have researched these things, but like you see on some Squier guitars and some of these Fender guitars, you know, stickers on the scratch plate, and nothing to me screams mass manufactured more than that. Right, so let's get into a little bit of the nitty gritty with this. I'm going to imagine that the places that these were made look vastly different. First of all, this would be made in China. It's, to me, pretty crazy that you can put together something with this many components and that actually does play like a guitar. Like, it's quite fun to play. I've been playing it for the last few days, actually, for about 120, 130 quid. And like, all of the bits on it actually function, which is impressive to me. The pickups alone on the Collings would be worth about 6 times the guitar, right? A Bigsby alone would cost about the same price as this guitar. You know, probably even the tuning pegs, if you were to get these off the shelf, I imagine those would probably cost about the same as the Squier. So that's kind of an interesting thing. I guess what makes the Collings kind of expensive in some ways is that it's using some fairly specialist bits of wood, Honduran mahogany, I think, but also that the construction of the body itself is actually a very complicated thing to do, right? So this is a trestle block construction, and a bit different to an ES335 in that it's fully hollow, but we do have a single block through the middle. And obviously that's going to take a bit of skill. Another thing is that this neck is asymmetrical and therefore most likely pretty hand finished. There is some here with the Plek machine, of course it's not actually CNC, is it? Which this guitar probably has seen considerably less actual handiwork. But yeah, this had a Plek machine at the factory, I think Collings used to kind of level the frets, and very uniform fret job, very tidy. But equally, the Squier doesn't have high frets, and kind of interesting to me, it's a little bit flatter, the frets on here, I would say. The wood is laurel. This, I think, looks like ebony to me. Let's plug them in and see what the differences are like here. This is also nitro, and this is a nitro finish. And they actually do specify which woods are used on this guitar, so maple and Honduran mahogany. They just say wood for the body of this one. I imagine if you look underneath this paintwork, the amount of cuts of wood here will probably be several, right? You've seen like some PRSs at this lower end of the market have like lots of pieces of wood stuck together. The maple is quite a nice example of some maple and looks to be made of one piece, which is kind of impressive. And then a laurel thing stuck on the front, truss rod. Yeah. overall, what stands out to me is like, surely the biggest expense here and the biggest difference in cost is how much the people are getting paid to make them. Because there is still quite a lot of level of detail that even goes into the very lowest kind of entry point of the market. And you say like this compared to like a, I don't know, like an American professional or something like that. Well, it has most of the same kind of types of hardware, the same amounts of screws, needs the same amount of soldering, the same amount of assembly. And even if the parts are a bit cheaper, or considerably cheaper, then still the main cost involved with making one of these guitars presumably is the cost of how much the human making it gets paid, right? One dead giveaway that you might be dealing with a cheaper guitar is how high the nut is kind of cut. This is a thing that I've really started to notice the more kind of cheap and expensive guitars that I see, that the plasticky nuts that are kind of a little bit too high looking or a little bit too square at the edges, whereas someone trying to make a guitar look expensive will kind of just tidy that nut up a bit. Maybe they use bone, maybe they don't. Somehow the nut is kind of an area that really does give away a cheaper guitar. And then also looking for like sharp edges on like the fretboard or on the wood itself, where it's like, well, it looks a little bit more like it's come out of a machine. Typically on a more expensive guitar, these edges might have been rolled a little bit. That's kind of some of the areas that I see as kind of obvious differences. So let me know your kind of what you look out for on a guitar, and is there some sort of giveaway for you? Another giveaway for me with this one is that the bridge is actually kind of bigger, chunkier than a normal kind of Strat bridge, and the 5-way switch kind of sits a little bit higher. Sometimes on cheaper guitars you'll find like these pots and stuff sit like a little bit higher, whereas on a more expensive guitar they kind of flush or more flush to the body. Just some differences, but kind of, yeah, looks like a Strat. Just finished editing this and I put together, I think where you can hear the biggest difference is kind of when it's just in the room unplugged. Like, I guess putting a lot more time into an instrument is kind of what is needed to get these kind of incremental gains, to the point where like Collings is kind of up there in terms of like one of the most expensive kind of new guitars you could buy. Through a normal signal chain and stuff like that, kind of some of those subtleties and differences you don't hear as much. When you hear them played side by side DI, in particular the Collings, to me it just sounds like it's kind of just sounds perfect. You don't need anything, and maybe this is, you know, what Julian Large is onto, where just plug in straight in DI, even with that with those Ellisonic pickups, which again, as I say, that set of pickups costs about 6 times more than the Squier guitar in total. Like, it's a lot of money, but recorded it does sound just great, just straight into my audio interface with a tiny bit of reverb. I don't know, what do you think of those tones? Obviously I know this is a really stupid video, but Music Radar kind of put up an article about my playing on the Squier debut, and kind of saying, well, it shows that basically you can sound like you more or less on most guitars. What does it take actually to get that next kind of step up? Maybe it is £8,000 on a Collings. I don't know, let me know your thoughts. Just going back to Jake today, but amazing guitar, I think.